Good to see you here this morning. It's kind of chilly out on the patio, but I know for some of you, you're probably waking up to snow this morning, so I hope you're staying warm. There are a couple announcements as we get into Brain Tech Support Live today. On the weekend of March 22nd, so likely March 22nd, and we'll have the exact date and location confirmed soon. I'm going to be doing an event in Mexico City. We'll do a workshop, we'll do a mental health discussion. I'll be doing that with Talk Mexico. And stay tuned for more details. We'll have a sign up soon and confirm the location where that's going to be happening. Also, thank you everybody who has made the journey over from the Instagram subscriber channel to the YouTube subscriber channel. It is great to continue to explore mental fitness adventures together. Everybody, if you don't know, I moved my subscriber channel over here to YouTube the last couple days, and we still have a couple more videos on this and posts. We've been exploring how to identify compulsions without doing compulsions and obsessing about compulsions as this new thing to clean away, which I think is a really important skill to develop because we do want to make changes. Those changes are useful to us to give our time and energy to the things we actually care about. I mean, that's what we'll be exploring today on Brain Tech Support Live. But we also don't want to then turn that into the new thing to get perfect and to control and check around. Sean, Nikith, welcome. It's good to see you. I hope you're all doing well today. Everybody, if you are joining, and John, how's it going? If you're joining Brain Tech Support Live for the first time, we explore how to do the things we want to do in life, how to grow more of what we care about while having human experiences. So having all of the intrusive thoughts, the anxieties, the uncertainties, the voices, the images, the whatevers. So we have experiences and we do the things we care about instead of getting caught up and trying to react to and control the stuff in our heads. This morning, I could feel it in my throat. This morning I was having a huge bowl of chocolate. It was delicious, but then it was time to get started on Brain Tech Support Live. And so I didn't finish all of the chocolate. I don't want to say it was too much chocolate. I mean, that would be false. Obviously, there's never such a thing as too much chocolate. There was just not enough time. I did not make enough time to finish all of the chocolate before we got started. So I saved it. I put it in the fridge, and I will enjoy the rest of it afterwards. Pom Pom Kitty, yay! Blooper, welcome. Hamza, it's good to see you all. I hope you're having a good weekend. How have things been going with having experiences and doing the things you want to be doing in life? One of the reasons that we focus on what we actually want to grow is because if we approach mental health with a focus on getting rid of stuff, of trying to subtract stuff, we just get caught up in the same patterns of behavior that defined the compulsions. We're not just making changes around a particular topic. We're making a fundamental change in many ways in how we approach taking action in life, and that it is no longer reactive. We're no longer going, oh, here's an uncertainty, let's go fix it. And instead we're saying, okay, here's something I want to grow. Here are the actions that lead to growing it. It is fundamentally an additive approach to life rather than a subtractive approach. When we're struggling with our mental health, we are taking a subtractive approach, trying to control things, trying to prevent things, trying to get rid of experiences. In taking that subtractive approach, we only create more of the things we're trying to avoid. Every single time. Charmed, hello to Italy. Yay, the coffee of the day is water. I'll probably have some coffee later. Sean, you said you had a good Valentine's Day in spite of struggling with ROCD and you're feeling grateful. I'm glad you had a good Valentine's Day. Pom Pom Kitty, so you're not following the brain, only following my values, and of course, spending time with your cats as well. Oh, I hope you're enjoying time with the cats. What are your cats' names? Martand. Martand, you said, why does my body become stiff and I freeze like a deer in headlights when I'm around anybody? I've tried to let go of social rumination and giving my attention to people, but I judge and freeze still. It immediately, that makes me think of deer. I grew up in the countryside. I tend to expect deer to like be running across the road. I assume sometimes, usually they run across the road. Deer are really good at running. I find the danger is more that they run into your car rather than be like standing out in the road. They don't have great timing. They get really reactive. Uh, we can too. So I'd be curious about not specifically social situations, but what's happening outside of social situations. And so you mentioned judging there. You said, I judge and I freeze. But why do the judgments happen? It can be really useful to look at the goals. For instance, if we have a goal of doing right things, let's say that's kind of general, but often it just is that we want to do a right thing. The vagueness contributes in part to the anxiety. Because if we set a goal of like, hey, I want to do right things, I want to do things right, I don't want to make mistakes, our brains are going to be on high alert. They're constantly going to be judging because also they don't know what a mistake could be. And they're always going to identify something as a mistake. Then we feel bad because we want to not make mistakes. And now the brain's telling us we've made a mistake and we'll have some kind of reaction. We might freeze, we might run, we might get in a fight, whatever it might be. But the first thing I would always be curious about there is, what is the goal? In the goal, we'll often see some unhelpful beliefs we have. Like maybe we believe, I need to do right things, or people won't like me. We see that we want people to like us, but then we've picked this kind of magical ritual of doing right, perfect things. And that's naturally going to create struggle and distress for us. So what is the goal? And then what would be a more useful goal? Because the brain is just going to automatically follow whatever goal we set. Dylan, good morning. Everybody, as you're dropping in, it's good to see you. Welcome. We're going to be doing some videos coming up too on relationships. So I see we've got some relationship questions. I think relationships is probably one of the topics that it's will end up, and even here we could see if we're talking about social anxiety, that's a bunch of relationships. It's so easy to start doing compulsions, checking and trying to control around relationships because they're inherently uncertain. Because most of us, I'd say, who knows, maybe 80% of the people joining us today cannot read minds or control minds. And so if you can't read minds and control minds, then you're going to have a lot of uncertainty around relationships and other people. All right, all right. Let's get into a next question. Yay. It said how to get over a fear of making a mistake, mostly in OCD recovery. Yeah, you see, that's one of the reasons we look at how to identify compulsions and make changes around compulsions without turning it into this new cleaning compulsion. So one of the things that can be useful to see is that across the board, no matter how many different themes we come up with, how many different themes you see in an OCD community, it's pretty likely, I'm not going to say with absolute certainty that for sure this is, certain, but it's extremely likely that you can take any theme and see that it's just contamination OCD. There's a wrong thing, and then this pressure to fix it and clean it away. We can apply the same to something like recovery, where we think, oh, I've got to fix OCD, I've got to get this perfect recovery, and then it's going to control the future. I won't struggle anymore, I won't relapse, it won't interfere with my life, etc. It can really help to shift the focus of any kind of mental health and mental fitness work we're doing to something we want to grow and build. So even dropping the whole concept of recovery. Just say, okay, fine, like, I'm not working on recovery. I'm doing these other things that I care about. I'm making breakfast for myself. I'm spending time with people. I'm moving my body. I'm sharing with others. I'm just going to do those things, and what are the actions to do those things? While I do those things I care about, I'm going to have experiences, but I don't have to do them in any kind of right or perfect way because it's not my goal to avoid something. My goal is simply to give those things I want to give. It could be really interesting to explore that shift to what are those things you want to give. Because in many ways, if we kind of took a moment to consider what is it I want to do after I've reached this perfect recovery, it is those things that we care about. So we just go there now. We can do those actions we want to do in life. Whatever it is we believe comes after recovery, that is actually the path out of OCD. And we can do it right now. And Charmed, I see you actually asked the question below that. You said, any specific tips for contamination OCD? And so it'd be that exactly what I just explained. I would identify what is it that you want to be doing. And then it's going to be about doing those things. You're going to have those feelings come up that, oh, I've got to fix this thing. I've got to clean that thing. I'm not going to fix it or clean it. I'm going to do those other actions that I actually want to do in life. Okay. And then, so I think the next question, Ariel, you said, I had a bad experience the last time I dated, and I think I need time to heal and stop dating for a while. But is that my brain coming up with reasons to not work on my values? But also, I don't want to rely on others for happiness. So you could kind of, I don't know how I would describe it, pull out some of those different things there. Uh, it's so a challenge I see people creating for themselves quite often, and it comes up a lot around relationships, is just setting these kind of rules like, oh, I'm not dating right now. I need to heal. I'm not dating right now. I've got like these other things I want to work on in my life and so on. And so just that framework of structures can create a lot of challenges. Yeah, because maybe you'll meet somebody, maybe you won't meet somebody. Just like if somebody said like, I really want to date right now, there's also no guarantee they'll meet somebody and so on. So what if we don't have to put those restrictions on ourselves? But another thing you mentioned there is saying like, I don't want to rely on others for happiness. Uh, of course. I mean, but that doesn't like dating doesn't have to be chasing happiness in somebody else or chasing validation in somebody else. We can date, and that can come from a place of wanting to share and give to the other person. So yeah, it is very useful to be happy and fulfilled in giving to ourselves the things that we need. We don't need to be chasing those things in other people because they are things that we need to give to ourselves. But dating doesn't have to be about getting. Dating can be about sharing and celebrating and supporting another person. And so yeah, it can be useful to say like, yeah, there may be some things you want to give to yourself right now, but that doesn't have to mean dating can't happen. But you may also see that, yeah, if you had a bad experience, there's a natural reaction to just go, dating is like touching a hot stove and it's painful. No, so we could both honor, yeah, that you had a painful experience, and so that's really understandable. Yeah, Alpha Zone. So Alpha Zone shared here. I just randomly came across your live. Wow, the last time I saw you was like 6 or 7 years ago. Your videos really helped me get through my OCD back then. I just graduated as a doctor now, and I just wanted to say thank you. Alpha Zone, thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you found the live stream today. Congratulations on the journey you've taken yourself on. And that's fantastic that you're exploring a career now. Yeah, you'll get to share with others, people who are going to be on so many different stages of their own journey. And yeah, your experience is going to be so valuable there to share with others. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Marcus, good morning. Sean, I'm glad your dog always likes you. Nomad, you said, I just started reading You Are Not a Rock and currently doing the inventories exercises. The book is great and really helping me with my mental health struggles. Nomad, thanks for reading. Have fun with the exercises. I find the inventory exercises are so useful for exploring, right, where we are right now in our lives and where we actually want to be. And I think just seeing the difference between the two exercises, the inventory and the ideal inventory, one lays out a path for the work to do. It's always an exercise I like to do when I'm starting coaching work with somebody. We do that exercise to see like what's the starting point and where do we want to go. But then you also see that this stuff isn't, I don't know, some kind of vague, amorphous, like kind of magic thing. It's going to be really practical steps between those 2 points. And so have fun with those steps. Pom Pom Kitty, I see you named your cat Meredith, but she only responds to meow meow. Hey, but that's nice that you've learned how to speak her language. I'm sure that is how you say Meredith. Daniel said, how to approach jealousy from others who've done you wrong in the past. And yeah, so Daniel, can you explain, are you jealous of the other people or the other people jealous of you? private. So what's the difference between changing how I think versus changing thoughts, which is a compulsion? I'm learning to talk myself kindly, but I feel like I'm just trying to change the negative thoughts. One of the things that could be fun to explore then is actually take a step back and ask, what are the actions of being kind to yourself? The metaphor I often use for this is, and right now I'm in the patio of a cafe. So usually for this metaphor or this thought exercise, I suggest to people they imagine a cafe. So I can see a table over there. I wonder if I can flip this around. So let's say we were in the cafe, and so see that table over there. Let's say there were a bunch of people over there at that table. So right now I'm the only person here, but let's say there were a bunch of people over there, and you saw them interacting to each other kindly, but you can't hear what they're saying. So how would you understand through actions that they're kind, that they care for each other, and that they respect each other? I think often we'll get very focused on stuff up here. So we think, oh, okay, like I'm going to say kind things to myself, and that's fine. But are we doing kind things to ourselves? And even the act of like trying to say kind things to ourselves might actually be taking us away from actually doing the kind things for ourselves. Personally, I find my brain does not understand English. It doesn't really understand any language. I now only know how to speak multiple languages not quite well. And so my brain's not great with languages. I could say nice things and nice broken things in any language. But what it does understand are actions. And so how do we practice kindness to ourselves? The brain, wants to throw up negative thoughts, medium thoughts, sour thoughts, mediocre thoughts. Who cares? It can come up with whatever. How am I going to practice kindness to myself? Stefan, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. I'm just scrolling up through the chat here. Okay, then we're back to the next question. Thank you, everybody. I know there's a free table here in the cafe if anybody wants to stop by. They're not serving anything yet. You can join the live studio audience. When we do the event in Mexico, and so I'll say again for anybody joining who missed at the start, there's going to be an event in Mexico City on March 22nd, possibly on the 23rd, but most likely on March 22nd. We'll have all the details finalized soon, and that'll be a fun time. It'll be probably a full afternoon of workshop and discussion about brains and mental fitness skills. FH, I hope you're doing well too. You said, like in your book, I always have one topic I'm obsessing with. It's really hard to notice the pattern and to learn to think differently. Oh, but what is thinking differently? Oh, okay, so very similar to what Private asked. You could map it out. Actually, you know what does a deep dive into this? Which is going to be more than I'll be able to cover right now. There is a video on my YouTube channel called The Anatomy of a Compulsion. And it lays out a framework for how we go from a belief to having an experience, to judging that experience, to then having feelings based on the judgment, and then taking action based on those feelings that come from the judgment that originate in our beliefs. And so thinking differently is changing that whole framework, getting new beliefs that are more helpful to us, not practicing the judgments, having experiences, and choosing different actions. So choosing actions based on our values rather than reacting to whatever feeling we're having from the judgments that we practice. So it is a complete change in how we perceive things, perceive experiences, and then the kind of the equation of actions that we do in our lives. And I was about to say the equation of actions we do as response to the experiences, but it's not. It's that in the past, we were just reacting to experiences, going, there's the thing, I've got to fix it. And the different approach, I would find tends to be the one we work on the most, is having experiences, and that's amazing. We can have all of the experiences, and they are not what's deciding the actions we do. Our values are deciding the actions we do. Andre said, I started having contamination thoughts, OCD, for like 2 weeks, never had it anymore. What approach would be ideal? Well, it's okay to have contamination thoughts. So just like I was explaining there, we can have those experiences, and that doesn't mean we have to start doing all sorts of checking and controlling and cleaning compulsions. So we can have the thought that, oh no, like this is contaminated. Okay, and I'm still going to do the exact same actions that are useful to me, that are useful to those around me. Maitan said, so this is related to the social anxiety and freezing question you mentioned earlier. You said the goal I see is that people should not laugh and make fun of me because it did happen in school. So I shift the goal to giving my attention on authenticity to people, no facade or show to make my reputation. Yeah, you see there, if we're trying to control what other people do, it creates so much for us to do because we don't control what other people think. I find that first. So when if someone's exploring social anxiety, and this is what I explored that I found really useful too, it can even help to step away from something like authenticity. And this is because also that is an abstract concept, and it gets us into trying to still be perfect. Authenticity, I'll often share with people, is very similar to saying, I want to be clean. I don't want to be this right, clean, authentic person. But then the brain will also start to question it, be like, oh, are you being authentic right now? Or, oh, you said that, but that's not really what you mean. Or is it really what you mean? And it becomes this whole thing. So when we're first starting to explore social anxiety, I always suggest to people that they pick actions that are completely objective and are not about like good or bad or anything like that. So the one I found really helpful, and I still do this all the time, if I'm going to a conference or an event or something, it's not about checking, did I say good things? Was I funny? Whatever. I will just pick a number, like 5, and say, I will meet 5 new people here. And that is it. I am not going there to meet the right people or avoid the wrong people or have a good experience or a bad experience. Nothing to do with feelings, does not matter. I'm just going into that social event and I'm going to meet 5 new people. And afterwards, I'm not going to do a whole bunch of compulsions, like thinking back through conversations and checking what I said. I'm just going to recognize how many people I met. So did I meet 5 people? I did meet 5 people. There's nothing else to debate or think about. Scorpio, I hope you're having a great day. got a great bell ringing. Is that, yeah, I don't, it's not exactly, it's not a particular time of the day. It's like 7:38 here. Avid, you're welcome. Oh, Rostam, welcome. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. This bell goes on for a long time. Oh, that stopped. It's so calm and peaceful this morning. I find right now I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico, and it's such a beautiful city. It's such an amazing place for, yeah, culture and art and food and the people and the nature. It's a really special place. It's one of my favorite cities or kind of favorite communities or regions because it's a full valley. There's the main city, but then there's all of these towns around it in the valley with their own unique culture, unique foods. It's a phenomenal place. It's like one of the best possible places you could ever eat in the world, and it's where we yeah, Oaxaca. So there's a cave, archaeological site just up the valley where the first evidence of squash comes from, and corn was developed kind of further up the valley to the north, and so a lot of agriculture, a lot of crops that become are very emblematic of kind of this region started here. This is also where there are the most varieties of agaves, I believe, in Mexico and therefore in the world. So there's all sorts of interesting things that are and wonderful things made from agaves. And of course, chocolate. We were talking about chocolate earlier. I was at a chocolate making class yesterday. Oh yeah, and even Yay, I just see you asked, to be honest, how much chocolate did you eat yesterday? A lot. But I brought a lot of it home. But yeah, no, because I had chocolate in the morning. I actually had there's a fun little coffee shop nearby. And so I had a chocolate pastry there with coffee for when I first woke up. And then I went to a shop devoted to chocolate. And so there I had like drinking chocolate. And so really amazing. So it was a kind of just pure drinking chocolate. So pure chocolate melted in water and then frothed up with a molinillo, which is this like special stick that makes your chocolate delicious. And so I had that, and I was like, on the menu it was like the price of a cup, but it was actually an entire kind of jar. It was like 3 or 4 cups of chocolate, and so I had that, and then almost immediately after that, I went to a chocolate making class, and so there we made chocolate from the bean. So we took the beans and toasted them, and then peeled off the skins, and then ground them up, and made chocolate. I made chocolate skulls. It was very appropriate. I was impressed when the chocolate maker she was explaining to me how to like kind of all of the process, and she pulled out a mold that was just skulls, and so we filled the skull mold with chocolate. But I didn't eat it all. I right I brought some for this morning. I still have some left. but I think it was 400 grams of chocolate that we made, just weighed in terms of chocolate and then some sugar. And with that, now I hope everybody's enjoying chocolate this morning. We will return we will return to the questions that are hopefully also all about chocolate. Mosquin, you said I've been single my whole life and I feel like I'm missing out on an integral part of being human. If you want to go on dates, like it's entirely possible to be very happy and fulfilled single, but also, yeah, if you want to go on dates, that's the thing you can do. My downward spiral. There's also an airplane going over. So we'll take a moment. I'll have a drink right now. Oh, the airplane. The airplane went right overhead. My downward spiral. He said, any tips on procrastination? So, number one, it's fantastic you're looking at procrastination. I think procrastination is a way we can see the pattern of compulsions that goes into everything else. Because all we're doing when we procrastinate is having a feeling, going, oh, this feeling means I can't do the thing I want to do right now, and then we avoid doing it. Learning how to have that feeling and do something we want to do is the exact same skill we practice with everything else. It is the same if we're having a feeling that we judge as wrong when we're in a social situation. We're having a feeling of contamination to not touch something. We can have that and we can pick up that object. We can go out of the house. We can do the things we want to do. And so with procrastination, an exercise I often suggest to people, just to get in the habit of doing things when you choose to do them, is to, in your calendar, so everybody can do this. So in the week ahead, in your calendar each day, schedule in a random activity at a totally random time. And it doesn't have to be some kind of important, big activity. It can just be, at 3:27, walk outside, touch a tree, come back inside. So you're doing a really, really short activity. It's not about doing something productive. It's just doing an activity quickly at a time that you set. And then you just practice doing that with any feeling. So the exercise here is that your brain is almost guaranteed at some point in that week to tell you, let's just do it later. Because it might even be a good feeling that you're really into something you're doing. And the brain will go, no, we don't want to interrupt this now. Do the activity after. Or it'll go, I don't feel like doing it right now. Let's do it later. Either one. With either of those feelings, we're going to practice taking it with us and doing the activity because we chose to do that activity. So it doesn't matter what the brain's throwing up. You can continue that practice over several weeks. As you go or add in more weeks, gradually increase the level of productiveness in the activity, so that rather than setting an activity like go touch the tree, you actually start to add in things you want to do. And so, but at first, begin with just doing a thing. Just starting to teach the brain, hey, I can do a thing and I can do it with any feeling. It could be a good feeling or a bad feeling, but I said I'm going to do this activity now and we're doing it. Yay. So what if you need mental clarity to study, to work, etc., and your brain keeps yelling at the background and distracting you? So the brain yelling in the background is not distracting us. Just like we can have many different noises around us. And mental clarity is not the absence of distractions. Mental clarity is having distractions and doing the things we want to do. So if we get caught up in that idea, oh, I need to have everything to be perfectly clean or I can't do stuff, That's actually just limiting us. That's not clarity. That's like saying, I want to go to the gym and not have any weights because the weights are distracting me from being fit. It's the other way around. You want to learn how to do things while having the brain. So pull up the brain a seat, whether it's work or studying. Those are going to be about particular actions that do those things well. Doing work well is not about some internal feeling. Doing that work well is going to be about, a set of actions that deliver on values for that work. Charmed said, living life the way you want to live it and not the way OCD wants you to live it is already recovery work. And it's a form of ERP. Am I right? Sure. Like I find it really useful to see living our life is the most useful, no, it's even most extreme ERP exercise. We're going to go live our lives. Inevitably, that's going to bring up uncertainty and unexpected events. We're going to feel that urge to control them. And instead, we can grow and build our lives more. August. We're going to come back to your question momentarily here. There are exactly, Scorpy, some comments. Oh, Dylan Assi got a great question there. I'm gonna get back to it momentarily. I'm just taking a scroll through the comments and just maybe tidying things up a bit. Kirara, absolutely, we can recover. It's great to see we can recover today. And since we've already graduated to recovery, we can move on to giving to the things we care about. Seaweed kelp. I'm glad you're enjoying the birds. It was really nice of all the birds to show up. This morning when I woke up, it was so quiet. And then I guess the sun started to come up and the birds started to wake up too. August. See, I was wondering about a possible compulsion. I've always enjoyed making stories and characters in my head, which I return to whenever I'm bored or not doing anything. The stories can often span months before I lose interest in them. But now, after battling OCD the past year and a half, I'm wondering whether this is contributing to my mental health. So actually, it's really insightful that you noticed this. Rather than, this is one of the reasons why on the YouTube subscriber channel right now, we're exploring understanding compulsions without getting wrapped up in like, what is a compulsion? And so one of the things that we just look at is how are we spending time and energy in our heads? Because it's not going to be about whether something is like wrong or distressing or about a fear or something like that. It can just be useful to look at, oh, am I kind of teaching my brain to spend a lot of time up here, but also to really believe in the stuff up here. Because if I'm getting like really invested and kind of believing in the reality of the stuff in my head, we could look at it just as exercising a muscle or building a skill. I'm just gonna get really good at that. And I may like it when I enjoy the story, but I may not like it when the brain starts throwing up a story and runs with it. So yeah, it personally helped me to see that all that time spent creating stories in my head, the same systems that then the brain would use to create really vivid, intense, like intrusive thought stories and false memories and stuff like that that I really didn't like. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it's also considering, what do I want to get skilled at? What do I want to get good at? It was then much more useful to say, look, I enjoy stories. So if I'm going to create a story, I'm going to share it outside of my head rather than keeping it up here. So yeah, something you may find interesting to explore is, what if rather than creating stories in your head, if you enjoy stories, you were sharing those stories, like writing them out and sharing them with other people and getting them out of your head. Andre, he said, do you think spiritual awakening could trigger an OCD? Their OCD is a thing we do. So if somebody is exploring some kind of spiritual experience, they could practice OCD around those experiences. But I wouldn't see it as the spiritual experience triggering it. It's more, I'd flip it the other way around. So Daniel, you asked about jealousy before, and I see you saying here, jealousy from myself. Yeah, if we're jealous of other people, right, so we're like, spending lots of time thinking about what they're doing and comparing and wanting to control that and stuff, it could be really useful to see that's just taking us away from doing things that we'd really like to do. And so when you notice that, it can be an opportunity. We don't have to hate on it, but go, oh, like I'm doing this because I really want to do some stuff. So I'm not going to spend my time and energy just on other people right now, hating on them. I'm actually going to take that time and energy and I'm going to put it towards doing things I want to do. And so identifying what those things are and what the actions are. So making the actions easy. So when that pops up, you can easily transition to doing something that you actually want to do. Scorpio said, I've realized that my compulsions come from the feeling of urgency to do something. And I'd say that in, for example, lip biting or checking my phone on a daily, how should we approach better? How should we approach positive or more subtle compulsions like these on the daily? It's often the case that there are things we want to improve and grow and build. So, and this is something that I'd say anybody can explore. This is something I'll often explore with like companies and stuff like that too, because of course there's a direction we want to go and there's some things we want to build, but then if we're focused on that all the time, we actually end up like doing a bunch of comparing and controlling, but not actually doing the actions that would grow those things we want to see. And so even if we want to make something better, rather than doing it about fixing something, it helps us look at what are the actions that will concretely, really, truly take us to that different place. So rather than seeing it as better, if we just say, for example, at first someone's saying like, oh, I'm lonely, I want to improve my social relationships. So rather than just going like, oh, I want to improve social relationships, we look at, well, what are the actions that actually do that? We say, okay, well, I'm not spending a lot of time interacting with people right now, and I don't belong to any groups or anything like that right now. So I'm going to join some things. And actually, I don't know which groups to join. So for a month, I'm going to go to a different group each week. I'm going to try out 4 different ones. And again, I'm going to some kind of social event. I'm not there to like go and check and get like some kind of right thing. Maybe I say each week I'm going to go to a different group and I'm going to meet 5 people. And then at the end of that month, simply being open to those actions of meeting people and meeting more people, then I'm going to consider, hey, are there any of those groups I want to continue with, or did I connect with anybody at those groups that I want to speak with more? And then the next month, then we focus on those groups or those interactions that we found, were effective or were helping us move in that direction we want to go. And then we do a month of that. And then again, we look at, okay, out of that month and what I looked at and interacted with more there, okay, which interaction? Oh, everybody, thank you. Internet in my Airbnb. So I came inside and we'll explore, because I was like, there's a whole bunch of questions here we haven't gotten to yet. So I will make sure. Scorpy, I don't know what part got cut off on the response I was giving there. But when, to wrap it up there, yeah, when it comes to any kind of thing we're going to pursue is doing better, it's really about saying, okay, if that's the direction I'm going to go, how do I turn that into very concrete, specific actions that I'm going to do in the weeks ahead and the months ahead? And then we kind of drop the far off goal and make, because also, who knows, like the world will get wiped out by an asteroid or a space whale next week. So private said, I'm really struggling with healthy worries and anxieties, and I can't tell when the symptoms are anxiety or panic symptoms, and when it's a real problem. The trying not to care or running to a doctor doesn't help, because I would go and check up every day if I feel a weird feeling. Yeah, so I find it's more useful to instead look at the actions, because yeah, if you're doing something like saying, hey, if I judge a weird feeling, I'm going to run to the doctor. I'd be really curious about what it is you're trying to control by judging the wrong feeling. So what is that feared consequence that, oh, if there's something wrong, what is the thing that's going to happen? What, instead of focusing on, I've got to prevent that loss, you were focused on, hey, the only reason I want to prevent that loss is because I want to live my life, for example. And here are the things I want to do in my life. Spending all this time checking feelings is not one of those things that I want to be doing with my life. So what are those actions I want to be doing instead? Ariel, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. You said here, I struggle on giving myself rest because I've just worked without resting. Our focus on being productive more and more and more and more easily becomes like chasing anything more and more and more. Like just like if we're washing our hands again and again and again, it's going to be that learning how to have that pressure from the brain to like constantly chase more and learning how to set boundaries with it. So I call this enoughness. We tend to really struggle to see enoughness. The thing is, the more we push, the more we're trying to get, we actually produce less and less. If we're not resting, as you've already noticed, then we'll actually end up being less productive, we'll enjoy things less, we'll be stressed out at all. If we're going to sustain things, if we're going to enjoy life, right? Like why are we trying to produce all this stuff? What are we chasing if we're not going to enjoy life today? It's going to be useful to, and we're planning, say, a work project, like we're going to say, I want to be productive. If we're doing that, we're incorporating rest without incorporating creativity, we're not going to enjoy it, we won't sustain it, we won't go as far. If we actually want to excel at things, if we want to do more, it's actually really important to learn how to do less. I find that physical fitness is a great way to understand this. Because if you're going to excel and say like a physical fitness program, there's going to be rest pre-planned in. So this is something that we can all do with things even other than just physical fitness, is to plan in rest. Like, don't wait to be reactive to rest. We're like, we feel tired. Okay, I'm exhausted, so I'm going to rest. Because if we're taking that approach, like, we're not going to do it sustainably. So it's actually so useful to, with whatever you're doing, so say like work and studying, to proactively plan in rest before you feel you need it. And what you'll find is that then you'll just enjoy the journey much more. You can do more. It's fun. It's not this huge chore. But yeah, it's often. Chuck, sometimes I'll cry for hours. One time my neighbors called the cops on me for it. Your neighbors should not be calling the cops on you for being bald. Or you meant that they called the cops on you for crying. It could be, I'd be curious. And so, right, this is, and even, yeah, you asked this question before, and now we've had some internet outages. So it could be really useful to explore things further, like, to work with a skilled professional and explore things further. Because it'd be, the immediate question that would pop up would be the question about what's going on when you're crying. Like, what is it that you're upset about? What are the things that you'd like to interact differently with yourself? And so, yeah, it could be really useful to explore things in depth at than just that one thing. Yay, no, compulsions are not only for OCD. Compulsions are just like the checking and controlling and reacting to uncertainty, taking that kind of react. All sorts of people can do. Yes, Scooby, mentioned you're tired of being so mean to yourself. It is exhausting, right? It can be much, much nicer to be kind to ourselves. I'm just scrolling quickly through the questions. Let's see here. To catch the live stream. Make the world a better place. Uh, I hope you're kind to yourself about the pants. AK, you said facial expressions make me very anxious when I'm in group settings. How can I be comfortable and slow down my anxious, fidgety, and rigid? I want to be comfortable, right? So I want to clean the feeling, my facial expressions. What you're asking about there is how to do the compulsion of that stuff. Andre, yes, so just a correction for my question about contamination. I'm having OCD about remembering things I don't want. Like, my mind needs to be clean. Yep, so I'm anxious about seeing any stuff I don't want to remember. Yeah, so it's the exact same. If we, whether it's touching things or we want to keep our mind, that I can't touch them, I can't have those experiences. There's a variation of this you'll often see called emotional contamination, where people might go, oh, I don't want to watch a news program about a bad person because what if like I get contaminated with the bad person? To really help, you could even say like exploring mental fitness skills is about the capacity to have any experience and to be able to pick it up and put it down. So whether that's an actual object, I want to be able to pick it up and put it down, regardless of the stuff my brain says about the object, or it's an in that mental kind of space in my head, I want to be able to pick up any memory. I can pick up any memory, I can spin it around, I can look at it, I can put it back on its shelf in the memory room. Adulio said, in the initial recovery stage, replacing compulsions with actions that come from our truer will. Second, I'm going to repeat the question. The internet cut out. You're still getting the urge from time to time, even when you're in recovery. Yeah, so a couple things I'd watch out for. So that idea of the truer will, I find that help with that push, so I'll often describe it as push. I wouldn't look for something internal to replace it. So for me to like check with some kind of will or truer will or self internally, difficult for us. I just more like learning how to follow a recipe. And so so if you're sitting down to follow a recipe to make cookies, it doesn't really matter what, like if the brain's like, let's add more flour or let's skip butter or whatever. It can do whatever it wants. You're going to follow that recipe, and the recipe is outside of you. So a huge help with this was learning how to externalize values. So getting the values outside of my head and really looking at whatever the action is, like here's how I do the action well. So I would say there's a bit of a nuance here. So yeah, I would say absolutely, like the brain learns follow our ways we get to practice that. Like even I find meditation, this is something I've often brought up before after meditation retreats, but through meditation in general, you're teaching the brain kind of how to sit down with you. I find a fascinating experience after meditation retreats is just the extent to which the brain is just sitting there waiting for direction from me, as opposed to just doing stuff. And so yeah, I find exploring all of these skills to follow values and cut out compulsions, developing a meditation to interact differently. These practices we explore are ways to change how the brain throws up stuff. So I'd say yes, it doesn't pull the way it used to. But also, oh, why is my brain doing this? I don't want it to. Actually now, if I notice some kind of pull or push from the brain, it's likely that I'll see a very clear reason for why that is. For example, if for some reason I had to check a bunch of things, I've noticed this before, if airplane, I was waiting on a flight and the airplane started to get moved around, and then the airline's, oh, okay, now that plane's canceled, we got to get you on another flight, and then there's a whole bunch of things I have to check, and I'm waiting on messages, so I just have to check a bunch of things. It's totally natural the next day that I might notice, even after the flight's been resolved, I've gotten to where I want to go, that I might notice the urge to just check my phone. And it's so helpful to notice, oh, I get it, brain, because yesterday we did have to check a bunch of stuff and control a bunch of stuff. Now you're in that helpful mode of just hey, maybe we need to control something right now. And so that's no problem. I can see the context around that, why it would be doing that. And it doesn't matter, it's welcome to do that. The brain is just like a dog. If I play with the dog in a particular way a lot, the dog's gonna wanna keep doing that. And so absolutely we with differently. But also we need to develop the skill to do the things we want to do regardless of the pull the brain is throwing up. And so yeah, it's both. Yeah, absolutely, it changes, and we make that change happen. But also, it's welcome to pull and shout and scream as much as it would like. Good morning. Apologies for the disruptions this morning in our stream. So you said, related to the switch list exercise in your book, I'm wondering about actions that we keep, start doing proactively instead of reacting. Yeah, I'm going to read the question again because I specifically want to work on hand washing. Would it be a good idea to make a list of situations where I wash my hands and not wash if it is not on the list? Or would you suggest approaching this shift in a different way? Yeah, so I had a bunch of hand washing compulsions. And as you've noticed, it is about changing like why we do it. But then we may also change kind of particular situations where we do wash and situations where we don't wash. So I think what helped me was noticing those areas where I would do compulsions around hand washing, and then just saying, okay, I notice that in this area I'm getting caught up in compulsions, or I notice that even in my head, even if I'm not really doing compulsions, I am trying to fix a fear. And then identifying a value. So yeah, it really helped me to set some values for hand washing. So very particular actions, and then those actions would be also changing the why. So in a particular situation, exploring how to wash your hands as a practice of care to your hands instead of a practice of trying to control an uncertainty. So yeah, there was no particular set way, but just noticing all of those situations and saying, okay, in this situation, actually, I'm going to start to not do something, or in this situation, here's how I'm going to do it and why I'm going to do it that way. Yeah. So yeah, it's great you see that. Have fun exploring that. I found that really useful. Andre, he said, if my goal is to be into mental fitness, is a value goal even if that overlaps with solving the problem? So yeah, because we could say that everything solves a problem. I don't know if you caught, so what we were just talking about there, if you catch this later, you can change the why, right? Like even hand washing is a great example of this. Often when people have compulsions around hand washing, they're doing it to try to control some uncertainty. We can wash our hands for different reasons. It doesn't have to be about fixing a fear. So we can do the same actions, but for a different reason than we might have in the past. And so that can, like we can explore mental fitness, just like we could explore physical fitness. If somebody's doing it because they think it's going to fix a problem, they're probably going to have a lot of stress around physical fitness. They might be doing the same exercise as somebody who's just doing that exercise to give themselves a gift of movement. So yeah, it's okay to look at changing the reason. Liz, so what's the difference between exposure and response prevention and traditional exposure therapy? Yeah, old school exposure therapy used to be just about exposing yourself to a thing. And it didn't look at cutting out the compulsion. So that's why you have exposure therapy, and then you have exposure and response prevention. And so the very key, what we know from research is the important element is that you really need to be cutting out the compulsions. If just exposing yourself to, say, an intrusive thought led to some kind of result, then people wouldn't struggle with intrusive thoughts because you probably spent years repeating horrible things over and over and over again in your head. And it does not result in anything except repeating them more and more and more and more. Oh, Kirarira, I'm glad you're giving yourself joy and freedom. That's fantastic. Ariel. So on rest, he said, how should I rest? I enjoy playing games, watching shows, but I'm reluctant to do them because it's not productive. What kind of activities could help me rest and prepare me for studying? Judging a thing of rest as not productive is I would say counterproductive, because the you're not looking to do something productive when you rest. But that's why also actually, like when you mentioned even games and watching shows, like I wouldn't actually see those necessarily as restful. Like you're still trying to do a thing. It could really help to explore kind of deeply as like a thing to be curious about, rest. Yeah, everybody. Sorry, the internet is still like in and out a bit. Yeah, I've switched to this internet, but I think it is doing yeah, is kind of doing wacky things this morning, unfortunately. Oh, but thank you so much. Actually, I see. Yeah, thank you everybody uh, for kind of navigating through a difficult um, internet connection this morning. Yeah, no, I think the internet's actually quite fast here, but for whatever reason, it's having some cutouts this morning. But I see. I know it cut out during some questions, but I see too, Kimberly. Thank you so much for the donation. Your comment mentions, I guess, my internet is spotty, but no, it was probably my internet. So apologies. Thank you so much for the donation. And absolutely, everybody, it'll be available afterwards. And Dylan, thank you so much for gifting memberships. I really appreciate that. Thank you for welcoming community members to the subscription channel. I really appreciate your generosity here this morning, as the internet is being a bit spotty. Luckily, on the membership channel, we don't have to worry about the spotty internet. So thank you. I see private mentions. I hope he notices and doesn't just keep talking to his phone. Oh, I kept talking to my phone. Dan said, how to approach weak relationships with parents. So there I'd look at what are the actions you want to do more of. I mean, any relationship in general, we're not going to have like control and certainty over. But we can practice giving. We can practice the actions we want to practice. Pom Pom Kitty, he said, any tips on following habits consistently? I realize I start out with enthusiasm, but that enthusiasm gradually wears out, and so does my consistency. Yeah, you see here why these skills we practice aren't just about feelings we dislike. Likewise, if we take a reactive approach to feelings we like, we'll usually then not be consistent or not sustain actions, because we've tied the action to enthusiasm in the same way we might tie an action to anxiety. And so I wouldn't look at doing actions based on enthusiasm any different than doing actions based on anxiety. We want to do actions consistently because they're useful to us. So that's why I often use the metaphor of the garden. So it's even at the event coming up in Mexico City on March 22nd, we'll do the garden exercise that I've been doing at the workshops this past year. One of the reasons we look at a garden is because you can't care for a garden based on enthusiasm. We are like gardens. The actions that are useful to us because they help us grow. They're useful to us because they nourish us. But if we base that on a feeling, then we're going to drop it, and then our gardens don't thrive. And so what if you can do actions based on their benefits and their usefulness and the care that you want to give to yourself, rather than needing a particular feeling? Yay. You said where to put and redirect your attention if you're not doing anything and the thought comes. Well, there's nothing wrong with a thought being there. So the thought, like a thought can be there and it doesn't mean you have to go and do something to distract yourself. If you're not doing anything, then why not just enjoy being? Dan, I see you said, how much should I spend on video games and social media if I want to work on mental fitness? So I wouldn't have an answer for that. It really depends on our values. And what I would look at is what we want to give. So I spend a lot of time on social media related to the work I do. But if I don't have something to give or create on social media, I don't need to be there. So I look at what do I have to give and create. And I'll notice like, oh, I'm about to I've answered somebody's question and then something popped up and then I was looking at it and then I'll often ask myself, oh, am I going to do anything here? Do I have anything else to create, anything else to give? Am I going to take action on anything right now? And if the answer is no, then I don't need to be there and I get off. Pressure, you said, due to anxiety, it feels like I can't breathe properly at any time. It's more like smelling and coming into a relaxed state is kind of impossible. I haven't relaxed in a while at all. It's really common to get caught up in a lot of compulsions around breathing and our bodies and things like that. One of the things, so I would look at there is actually taking a broader look. If somebody messages me about body-related compulsions and feeling like, oh, I can't do a thing completely, the first question I'm always curious about is what else in their lives do they like to control? Because often what's happening there is we're doing lots of controlling and lots of getting certainty in many areas. And then the brain is just very logically extending that to then something we can't get certainty and control around. And then we find that distressing. But if we're going to work on that, it's going to be much more broadly throughout our lives, learning how to not do all of that checking and controlling. Chimplove, you said, what do you think of someone using chamomile as a sleep aid to help when struggling? I'm just going to move my phone back here. What do you think of someone using chamomile as a sleep aid to help when struggling with sleep? I have stomach issues and I find it helps clears those up, but my brain throws up a lot of thoughts around sleep. I think, I wouldn't get too caught up in trying to like check and control and make sure we're doing recovery right or something like that. I mean, if you're enjoying chamomile tea, enjoy chamomile tea. I mean, if you're not enjoying chamomile tea, hey, you don't have to use it. But if you're enjoying some chamomile tea, it could help just to enjoy it and have tea rather than seeing it as like being this like much bigger thing and affecting all sorts of other stuff. It can just be tea. Tea, I think chamomile tea is it from daisies? Or is it, it's a similar plant but different? I can't remember now. But yeah, plants are nice. Enjoy some tea. Lewis. Oh, he said, my friends and coworkers have hurt me a lot in life. I ruminate a lot about these people and events. I question how much of the painful emotions are valid or are distortions created by OCD. Oh, look, I'm sorry you had that experience. Rather than seeing it as like something to figure out whether, they're like valid or distortions by OCD, because we could have all sorts of experiences, memories, pain, and so on. If we get caught up in like trying to judge and put them in categories, like I would say that itself is the thing that can create more struggle and can be problematic for us. So what if you don't have to categorize these? If something is painful, it could be painful. But what do you want to be doing? If we notice something's painful, what I find helpful is there to notice, okay, this is painful because there's something I want to create. There's something I want to explore. So for instance, if I notice a relationship or a social experience was painful, then I might notice, oh, that's because I want to have some social interactions and relationships with people. And that one was painful. And our brains may go, oh, like that experience was the experience. There's nothing else in the world except that experience. And so I can give my brain a hug and recognize, well, that's not actually the case. Yeah, that was a painful experience. But that's painful because I want to develop relationships and I want to be in community with other people. So that was just an experience. Yeah, it wasn't a good experience. I want to explore new experiences. And so what are the actions that are going to generate new experiences that are going to find new community? And I'm going to explore those actions. So when we touch the painful experience, we can pick it up, we can look at it, we can understand it. We don't then have to just stay with it. Yeah, we don't have to like dismiss it, be like, oh, that's a distortion or that's not valid. Regardless, yeah, like it could even be something like a false memory. We could recognize, sure, it's totally false. But the pain that I'm experiencing in this moment is still real pain, and it's there because I care about something. So what am I going to go and do to grow something around those things I care about? Not about fixing a thing in the past, but growing something entirely new and different. Sharon, oh, and this might be kind of similar. He said, how do you deal with past trauma when you're not yet in therapy, but have so many other things to deal with that are more pressing? Like physical health and caring for an autistic child. Yeah, I wouldn't see, we are not time-traveling janitors. We are only going to work on experiences from the past in the present. So in our interactions with physical health, interactions with caring for others, those are where we're going to work on painful experiences from the past. Those are the opportunities to interact differently with those painful experiences. It's very much like having a physical injury. If we have a physical injury, we can't go into the past and do anything with it. The physical injury, say the scar tissue, is going to be right here in the present. And it's in how we move in the present that we're going to be maybe bringing mobility and support back into our lives, or we might be exacerbating the injury again. So we never have to think, oh, like, there's this past painful traumatic experience and I can't work on it right now because I'm too busy with my life. No, like, our lives are where and how we'll work on it. By noticing those experiences and understanding the ways we want to move in the world, and the ways we want to give kindness and compassion to that pain. But then, also the ways we might see, okay, this is painful, but I'm going to move in the world in a particular way right now because I know that's going to be helpful for bringing back that mobility that's been impeded by the trauma. King Kong, you said, why the mind reacts more to compulsions than values? How should we perceive? I get overwhelmed with all of these. Well, it's okay if the mind reacts to things. Like, it helps me see the mind is welcome to do whatever it wants. It's natural, it's going to react to fears, to trauma, to craving, to uncertainty. And so that's okay. So I'd see it not as a problem if it's overreactive to stuff like that. That's completely to be expected. And while it reacts in that way, we learn how to have those experiences and do things differently. Charmed. Yeah, you said, can you expand a little bit about washing your hands for reasons that are not related to fear and trying to control uncertainty? I'm talking from the point of view of contamination. One of the things that I found really useful to do with your hands is that you can wash your hands just as an act of kindness. Like, you're just taking care of them. You just want them to, like, have a little bath. Like, one of the things I would say there, if it's contamination and you're, say, washing your hands, what would it be like to do that from a place of love and care, rather than believing that washing your hands is some kind of magical thinking ritual that's going to control, whether you're going to get Ebola in the future? Oh, and that's even related, as David asked below. David said, Mark, you have a fine beard. Where do you draw the line between maintaining it to look good in the eyes of others and maintaining good beard health? Yeah, it's something, and especially I find this is something I've suggested to a lot of coaching clients who are guys when we've been working together. It's really useful to start exploring caring for yourself simply as a practice of caring for you. Even just taking that time to spend time on your body, because again, also we'll be really focused on, I've got to be productive, or this isn't doing anything right now, or I'm not seeing anybody later, so I don't need to take care of myself. But making a practice of caring for you, just about giving time and energy to you, that is something you do consistently for you. It's not about other people. So again, it relates to that idea of a garden. Like, these are simply actions to take care of you. So for instance, like, I have something like a beard oil product and things like that. It's a consistent thing that I'm just doing as part of caring for me. And that's it. And so really useful to start exploring how we care for ourselves, not as a controlling ritual. Lucia, I see you mentioned, how can I heal self-rejection? it's gonna be about, so like, what would you see as the opposite of self-rejection? You know, like if that's like caring for yourself and self-care, like what are those actions? And it's gonna be about practicing them. Bora said, I'm curious about something. Did the time you spend in your head actually decrease, or you got better at being able to choose what you're going to think about? Well, I'd be curious about how you see those as kind of like an either or, because I would say both. Yeah, so now there's lots of times where I don't do anything in my head, and it's fantastic. But also, I would say because of that, I don't know if you caught it earlier, saying about like because of exploring things like a meditation practice, for instance, the brain becomes much more, how to describe this? The brain follows us more. Like the brain really is like a puppy, and so it is like training a puppy, where rather than it constantly running around and us being like, don't eat that, don't touch that, stop that, why are you barking? It like waits for instructions. So also the brain becomes much more of a thing, a tool that we use rather than us constantly chasing it around. Chloe said, similarly to Shannon, I'm going through CPT right now, but I'm also a busy full-time college student with multiple jobs, and sometimes it's exhausting. Do you have any tips to deal with it? Yes, with anything, because the world we live in can be very exhausting. There's so much to do and so much to control and so on. So one of the things is to recognize that, like, there's going to be more to do than we have time and energy to do. So what's most important to us? And celebrating that, because again, the brain's always going to be like, we got to fix everything. Saying, no, brain, like I've decided that these are the actions I'm doing today, and that's enough. I'm going to celebrate the hell out of those actions. And yeah, there's some things I'm not going to do, but I did the things that were important. And so being very intentional about what's most important to us. So what do we value? How are we giving time and energy to those things that are most important to us? And celebrating those. Then also recognizing that therapy, like we can't separate living our lives and learning mental health skills. If we're going to therapy, that's not a thing on top of life. We're going to therapy to learn skills that we then apply in how we're doing other things. And so, yeah, I would always look at how do you bring those together. If they're seeming separate right now, that is something I would talk about with the professional you're working with. How do you start to integrate those? Because we always have our brain with us. We cannot go and work on mental health and then go and live our lives. That is where we're working on our mental health. Oh, so charmed. This is an interesting question. It said here that in your experience, would washing your hands out of love instead of out of fear help reduce the time you give into the compulsion to wash your hands? No, that is the time. Because notice there again how you're kind of asking how, like you're wanting the feeling to determine the time, but it's not that. So even if we were still washing out of fear, we're still going to set a hard limit on there, because we don't want the washing. The washing can't be dependent on the feeling. Because what would happen there then is you say, okay, if I am practicing love towards my hands, then I only wash my hands for 30 seconds. But if it's fear, I have to do more. But the time limit is something you want to set separate from all of that. So I'm going to wash my hands this amount of time once, always, regardless of whether I'm giving love to my hands and kindness, or I'm just in a full-on panic attack. And so yeah, I would say it's important to see that we're going to practice a different reason behind the action, but the action cannot be dependent on what we're feeling inside. Another question here, what to do when it is hard to be inside your brain having negative rumination and anxiety and depression 24/7? So it helped me to see that those were compulsions I was doing. It is hard to be inside of our brain practicing all of that. And so it was really useful to look at reducing what I call time spent in head and get out of my head and into the real world. Yeah. Everybody, will wrap up here in a second. Chloe, you're welcome. Brianna, you said how to stop existential thoughts. So the trying to stop them is one of the compulsions, and is going to create more stress and uncertainty. So I would look instead at like welcoming existential thoughts. We can have existential thoughts, pull them up a chair. They're welcome to join me for breakfast. Yeah, if some existential thoughts want to show up at the cafe later, they're welcome. They can have a sandwich. This cafe has amazing cookies. I hope the existential thoughts have a cookie because they need it. We don't have to do anything to fix them or control them. What can be more useful to look at is changing the actions that we're doing. So we don't need to do all the checking and controlling that we're doing around those uncertainties. Oh, John, thanks so much for stopping by for your first live. Oh, Ariel, thank you. I'm glad you've enjoyed my book. OCD Bear, yeah, you just stopped by. We were just wrapping up. We had some internet issues today, but some fascinating exploration. But it's almost breakfast time. Prasharit, he said, I'm a college student and I overthink about everything. I have intrusive thoughts and feelings, and it's been a while now and it feels like I've lost all emotions, but I want to live and enjoy life. Yeah, one of the things that can really help, this comes up in all sorts of different ways, is do you notice there where you said, I'm a college student, I overthink about everything. That overthinking is something we do. It is like saying, I'm a college student, I smash a frying pan in my face every morning. And being like, oh, the face pain really distracts me from living my life. We don't have to do that. And so, yeah, you're seeing that practice of overthinking everything, of chasing that certainty, of chasing that high, that feeling, you're seeing that that's not valuable to you. It's not useful to you. It gets in the way of doing things you want to do. And that's great to notice. And we don't have to do that. It really helped me to recognize that often when I was overthinking, I was choosing to do that. I was chasing goals, right? I wanted certainty. I wanted to get a feeling of something being right or a feeling of control. Me chasing that goal was the problem. And so we benefit from changing those goals. We see that they're not helping us. So we don't have to chase them. We don't have to practice those overthinking compulsions. Oh, homeless vegan, thank you. Oh, John, thank you for the questions and interesting topics to explore. Thank you, Lewis. Lucy, so what's the title? I think you meant of the book. It's "You Are Not a Rock" in the U.S. and Canada, and "The Mind Workout" in Australia and the UK, and then some countries in Europe it'll be called "The Mind Workout" too. But then there's also a bunch of translations, the Spanish version is "Entrenamiento." There's a Portuguese version, German. There's French. There's Arabic. There's Turkish. Roman the Roman. Yes, what will I eat? Yeah, that's a good question. That's a super, super important question, but also it's not a question I've thought about. I will go and then I'll look at the menu and then I'll choose something. Oh, CDPR. I will go live again in 2 weeks, right? Like not next week, but the week after. Thanks for sharing about it with your group. To the question of how to reduce time spent in head, like being distracted and how to stop mental compulsions. Yeah, so I would look at, just like I was talking about there with the overthinking, the goal. So usually we're spending time in our heads because we're chasing a goal of control, of certainty. We believe that the mental compulsions will deliver us some good feeling that we want, but we already know it will not do that. Yeah, Dylan, you said, could you suggest some ideas, examples for values around hand washing besides caring for my hands? That idea doesn't fully click for me since I'm not sure why my hands need nearly as many baths as I give them, but they probably need more than I would give them, just for care. Yeah, so another value, I do, so if say you're going to wash your hands before cooking, so there I just look at as a step of preparation. So there might not be some kind of care thing. I feel like the kind of sense I bring to that more is like of preparation, like putting on a uniform, like I'm getting the hands ready. You could look at it as for cooking or surgery or whatever. So it's just a thing we do as part of the going to work. So my hands are about to go to work. This is how they get ready. We're done, and then we go. So something like that. So really seeing it as not as a fixing thing, but as isn't this exciting? We're about to go and do a thing. So yeah, if it's something you're going to do before particular things, that way, it could, in maybe Dylan, if you want to explore, you could send a message later. If you notice you're doing hand washing around particular activities or events, then it might be talking about what is the particular activity? And so if there's a fear there right now, what is the activity you want to make it about instead? But then also in some of those situations, you may find you're going to not do it. You're not going to be doing the old hand washing compulsion, and it'll be gone. And Dylan, thank you so much for gifting more memberships. I really appreciate that. That's really kind of you to share with everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, today for all of the memberships you gifted everyone. That's so, so amazingly generous of you. Thank you for supporting the community like that. Oh, and Homeless Mickey, thank you for suggesting to everybody they buy You Are Not a Rock. Oh, everyone, I really appreciate the support, especially through our kind of iffy internet connection and moving around this morning. Pepsi said, I'm nearing the end of your book. It's really good and informative, and I've enjoyed it so far. Oh, yeah, you mean maybe you won't like the ending, like there won't be a happy ending or something. He said, I still struggle to start putting in the work since my compulsions feel so automatic. Yeah, so it can really help to see with the book that You Are Not a Rock and the Mind Workout, they are not for reading. They are for action. You can't do the book without doing the exercises. So right there, I'd say Pepsi, so the first exercise in the introduction, right? The like exercise before we even get to the exercises, right? Is to learn how to catch the urge to control things. And then catch the urge to check our phones and not do it. If you haven't done that exercise yet, I would start there. All of the other stuff is just that basic skill of learning how to catch the brain and make a different choice. And so if compulsions feel automatic, but you haven't explored that exercise, that can be really useful to start with. We train our brains to be automatic with this stuff through our actions in our everyday lives. The phone is a perfect example of that. Most people automatically pull out their phones. So we were also talking about this on the subscriber channel. So everybody joining the subscriber channel, there are different levels. So the brain level is the first level. And then the donut level is where we've been exploring, where we make a whole bunch of videos and we've been exploring identifying compulsions without turning it into a compulsion. And one of the videos I shared there the other day is about that simple skill of learning how to catch the push from the brain. So when the brain is pushing us to just do a thing, and it may be, or usually, is something we don't see as a compulsion. It'll just be that pressure to pull out our phones and check them. And maybe we'll say, well, it's not a compulsion, I'm not bothered by it. But it's setting up that practice with the brain that it's going to throw up an urge and we're going to automatically react to it. So learning how to just notice that urge to grab your phone is a phenomenal way to start learning mental fitness skills. Feel the pressure to just check, go, I don't have to do that right now. I'll choose when I use my phone. My brain is not going to push me to do it automatically. As you start to learn that skill in so many different ways throughout our lives, it becomes easier to apply it to stuff that does distress us. But if we haven't learned how to practice the skill of controlling our actions around things that don't distress us, it is completely understandable it feels challenging with things that are threatening. Yeah, and Dylan, I see, you pointed out at the end of You Are Not a Rock, there's no like riding off into the sunset on a farting unicorn. We don't want to give away the ending, but yeah, that'll maybe in a future book. That's how it'll end. Oh, OCD Bear, that is very kind of you. Thank you for sharing about the work with your group. Yeah, Pepsi, see how it goes. Yeah, feel free to ask more, questions about what you're exploring there. Absolutely, it's about doing the exercises. So definitely, share about them, talk about them. We can explore any challenges around them. Oh, Charmed, thank you. Have a wonderful day in Italy. And Homeless Vegan, thank you so much for the donation. This is your first super on the live stream. I really appreciate that. And I think it's like a hippopotamus racing through. Thank you so much for the support. Oh, and King Kong, here's a great topic to end on, a great question, and we'll wrap things up. King Kong, yes, how to reframe thoughts. I find it really helpful to see thoughts as experiences. We experience thoughts in the same way we experience sounds. Having a bird fly by and chirp is the same as having a thought pop up and maybe make some noise. Having a thought is the same as walking down the street and seeing some trash on the street. We don't have to stop and argue with it, but also if we walk on, we're not suppressing the trash on the street. We can have experiences like thoughts, and we can bring them along while we live our lives. Okay, one more. And Sobek, you said, I understand that I have to stop mental compulsions, but they are my normal thing, literally. I don't know any other way of living, any recommendations how to start to stop them, and what to do instead. So yeah, for everybody, I would say it's their normal thing. So know that there's nothing unusual or strange. When we're talking about dropping mental compulsions, we're talking about this scenario. And so it helped me to recognize it was my normal way of doing things, and that I was often choosing to do the normal compulsions. So yeah, it really helps to start. I always start there. When people ask about cutting out mental compulsions, I ask about the things they like to think about. One that I noticed is that whenever I would walk somewhere or go somewhere, I would choose something to solve in my head. And so it helped to start saying, okay, when I go places, if I'm walking somewhere, if I'm traveling somewhere, on the bus or the train, I'm going to practice not doing anything in my head. I'm just going to move from one place to another. And so that could be a fun place to start, is to start noticing that it's something we choose to do, and we don't need to choose that. And with that, we will end it there. We're coming up on almost exactly 2 hours, but I know a lot of those 2 hours was the internet popping in and out. So thank you so much for everybody for the discussion, for hanging around through our buffering disruptions, for joining me in the patio and then indoors today. Thank you so much for the support. Kimberly and Dylan, Homeless Vegan, I really appreciate the donations. And Dylan, thank you so much for sharing memberships with so many people today. And thank you, for the kind message there. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Chloe, enjoy your day. Pepsi, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Everybody, have a day of adventure, exploring, having a human brain, having experiences, and doing the things you care about. We'll see you next time.